Um, Hello everyone. My name is Emily. I am 27 years old and the oldest child in a family of four. I wish I could say I grew up in one of those wholesome sitcom households where the biggest drama was someone hiding the TV remote or eating the last cookie, but no, my life was more like a low budget soap opera that forgot to hire a laugh track. My parents, Linda, who is 52, and Robert, who is 55, have always played favorites. Spoiler alert, it was never me. My younger brother Jason, who is 24, has been the golden boy since he figured out that crocodile tears could solve all his problems. When we were little, he could spill a glass of red Kool-Aid on the brand new beige carpet, dramatically point his finger at the dog, and my parents would act as if Sherlock Holmes himself had solved the case. Suddenly, I was the one grounded. The dog looked guilty, and Jason was rewarded with ice cream for being so brave through the trauma. Meanwhile, I was the one holding down part time jobs since high school to help with bills, driving my mother to work when our Chevy broke down, and buying groceries with the money I earned while my father mysteriously forgot to pay the electric bill. And when I say forgot, what I mean is that he remembered to pay for his fishing trips with his buddies, but the electric company somehow never made it to the top of his memory list. Fast forward to adulthood, and I am the only one in the family who managed to build a stable life. I am not wealthy, but I have a steady job as an accountant in Dallas, a modest townhouse that I pay for myself, and the priceless freedom of no longer being treated like the family ATM. At least that was what I thought. Jason, on the other hand, is still a walking cautionary tale wrapped in cargo shorts. He dropped out of college after one semester because classes were not his vibe, works part-time at a vape shop where his biggest responsibility is making sure the fog machine never runs out, and spends his paycheck on Pokemon cards, overpriced DoorDash orders, and sneakers so exclusive he cannot even pronounce the brands. And then there is Tiffany. She is 22, Jason's girlfriend, and she already had two children from two different men before she and Jason got together. My parents adore her as if she were some kind of saint instead of a woman who once left a dirty diaper on their coffee table like it was a decorative centerpiece. They talk about her as if she is a cross between a Disney princess and Mother Teresa, conveniently ignoring every red flag that waves in front of their faces. When Tiffany gave birth to her third child, Jason's first, the circus officially rolled into town. One Sunday, I was summoned back to my parents' house. My mother was cooking her so-called special tuna casserole, which in reality should come with a warning label because the last time I ate it, I felt like my stomach was auditioning for a horror film. She only makes that dish when there is bad news coming, and sure enough, I was not wrong. As I sat at the table pretending the casserole was edible, my father cleared his throat in that overly dramatic way of his, the same way he does before giving one of his serious talks, and said, "You will not abandon the family, Emily. We need your financial support. Tiffany does not have insurance. Jason cannot afford daycare. And you are the only one with a good salary." I nearly choked on a noodle, which honestly would have been a merciful way to avoid what came next. I looked at them and said flatly, "It is not my child, and it is not my problem. You would have thought I had just committed a crime against humanity." My mother gasped so loudly that I am certain the neighbors heard it through the walls. My father slammed his fork down so hard that it bent into a sad U shape like a cheap prop. Jason muttered that I was selfish, as if he had any moral high ground while sitting there jobless with his vape shop discount card. Tiffany, who was scrolling on her phone and not even pretending to be part of the conversation, chimed in with, "Family means pitching in," while adding items to her Amazon wish list. I stared at her and thought to myself, does she imagine pitching in means everyone else but her? I walked out of that house without saying another word, but inside I was boiling. For years, I had been their free babysitter, their grocery fund, their emergency car repair line, and now they had the audacity to expect me to bankroll Jason's baby too. Absolutely not. A few days later, Tiffany decided to sprinkle gasoline on the fire. She created an online baby registry and, in her infinite lack of foresight, tagged me in it. She clearly expected me to buy half the items on the list, but this registry was not the usual practical set of onesies and wipes. It included a $400 stroller, a $250 designer diaper bag, and the pièce de résistance, a PlayStation 5 listed as for when Jason gets stressed. Because nothing screams responsible parenting like dad rage quitting Call of Duty at 3 in the morning while the baby cries in the background. That was when I decided to get creative. I shared the registry link on Facebook, but instead of writing the expected supportive message like, please help my brother and his girlfriend, I wrote, for anyone curious where your tax dollars go, here's how my brother Jason and his girlfriend are spending their welfare checks. Feel free to contribute if you love funding laziness. It was like lighting a match in a dry forest. The post blew up. People from church saw it. Jason's boss saw it. Tiffany's own mother saw it. Neighbors who had never cared about our family drama were suddenly eating popcorn while commenting. Some people thought it was the funniest thing they had ever read. Others were horrified. But one thing was undeniable. Jason and Tiffany's reputation crashed harder than Jason's GPA in college. Jason called me in a full meltdown, screaming so loudly that I had to hold the phone away from my ear. He accused me of ruining their lives, claimed that people were laughing at them, and said they could not even show their faces at the vape shop anymore. Tiffany was in the background crying that I was toxic, which was hilarious considering she was simultaneously posting Instagram stories with captions like, haters gonna hate, and jealousy is a disease. I let Jason rant for as long as he wanted, my smile growing with every passing second until he finally stopped to breathe. Then, in the calmest and sweetest voice I could muster, I just said sweetly, well, it's not my child and not my problem. After the chaos of the baby registry post, you would think that my parents might take a step back, process what happened, and reflect on why their adult daughter had finally snapped after years of being treated like the family's personal bank. But of course, that would require accountability, and accountability is not something my parents have ever subscribed to. Instead, they went straight into damage control mode. My phone started buzzing within 24 hours of Jason's meltdown, and sure enough, it was my mother calling. When I answered, her voice was already thick with tears. She did not ask how I was or whether I was okay. She immediately launched into how I had humiliated the family. According to her, people from church were whispering, the neighbors were gossiping, and even her co-workers had started asking questions. She said she could not even walk into the grocery store without feeling judged, all because I had aired dirty laundry in public, as if the real problem was not their freeloading, but me shining a light on it. I let her cry and ramble until she finally passed the phone to my father, who had been stewing in the background. His voice was low and controlled, but I could hear the anger vibrating underneath. He said I needed to apologize to Jason and Tiffany immediately if I wanted to keep this family together. I felt that familiar surge of frustration, the kind that comes from years of being told to smooth over messes I did not create, and I decided I was not going to let this slide. Not this time. So I asked my father a simple question. When Jason got his DUI last year, who bailed him out? There was silence on the line. He did not answer, but I could practically feel him clenching his jaw through the phone. I pressed further, reminding him that it was me who left work in the middle of the day, drove to the county jail, and paid the bail because Jason had spent his own money on sneakers instead of saving for emergencies. Still silence. I kept going. When Mom's car needed new tires last winter, who paid for them? Again, no response. I reminded him how Mom had called me crying about how unsafe it was to drive in the snow, and I had swiped my credit card because my parents did not have the funds. And they had the funds, of course. There was always money for fishing trips, nail appointments, and random nonsense, but never for the things that actually mattered. And then I delivered the last blow. Who covered the hospital bill when Mom forgot to sign up for insurance? He still did not say a word, but I could hear his breathing grow heavier. I reminded him that I was the one who spent hours on the phone with billing, negotiated a payment plan, and then quietly paid it off because my mother had somehow managed to forget an enrollment period that every single person in the country gets bombarded with reminders about. The silence stretched long enough that I knew I had hit the target dead center. For once, there was no lecture, no guilt trip, no twisting of the facts. It was just silence, and I finally said the words that had been building up in me for years. I told him, "You only call me family when you need money. Otherwise, I am just the scapegoat." Then I hung up. It felt better than therapy. It did not take long for the fallout from the registry post to spiral into something even bigger. Jason, who had already been barely clinging to his part time job at the vape shop, ended up losing it altogether. His boss, who had seen the Facebook thread, pulled him aside and basically said that he did not want that kind of drama attached to the store. According to Jason, people had started making jokes about him at work, dropping off baby bottles at the counter, or asking if their tax dollars would cover their purchases. He blamed me entirely, of course, claiming that I had single-handedly destroyed his career. Never mind the fact that his career consisted of standing behind a counter, blowing vape rings, and bragging about limited edition sneakers while his pregnant girlfriend sat at home. Tiffany, on the other hand, went on a social media tirade that could have earned her an award for melodrama. She wrote long posts about how I had ruined their lives, how I was toxic and jealous of her happiness, and how I had no idea what it was like to be a young mother. She conveniently skipped over the part where she had already been a young mother twice before meeting Jason. Her friends piled in, posting comments like, "Stay strong, queen," and "Haters gonna hate." But I noticed that more people from town were laughing at her posts than supporting her. Screenshots circulated, neighbors whispered, and it seemed like every time I logged onto Facebook, there was another sarcastic meme with Jason and Tiffany's names attached. Meanwhile, my mother decided that this was the perfect time to try another guilt trip. She called me late at night, her voice heavy with fake concern, and said that Jason was a father now and that I should help him. She claimed it was my duty as the older sibling to step in, that Jason was overwhelmed, and that family is supposed to support each other. I could feel my blood pressure rising as she spoke because I knew exactly what support meant in her language. It meant I was expected to open my wallet again. It meant that once more, I was supposed to fix problems that were not mine to fix. What made her words even more infuriating was the memory that popped into my head while she spoke. Years ago, when I was drowning in student loans and working 2 jobs just to keep myself afloat, I had called her crying, desperate for some kind of emotional support. She had brushed me off with the phrase, "Life's not fair," as if that was supposed to be comforting. That sentence had stuck with me for years, echoing in my mind every time I pulled an all-nighter for school and then went straight into a shift at work. So instead of arguing with her or letting her drag me into another endless fight, I decided to keep it short and sharp. I pulled out my phone after we hung up, typed out that same exact phrase, "Life's not fair," and hit send. A few seconds later, I saw that she had read it, and then nothing. No reply, no attempt at a comeback, just silence. She left me on read. Here is where the story takes a turn from drama to pure comedy. After the registry fiasco, Jason and Tiffany were furious at me, but instead of taking accountability, they doubled down. They decided that if I would not play family ATM, then the government would. Jason and Tiffany applied for government childcare assistance, strutting into the social services office like they were royalty presenting themselves to peasants. In their minds, it was just a formality. After all, Jason believed working part-time at a vape shop was him already doing his part for society. Tiffany thought having 3 kids by 3 different men was practically her ticket to guaranteed benefits. But here's the hilarious twist. They got denied. Not because the system was cruel, not because life was unfair, but because Jason technically could get a full-time job. The social worker pointed out that he was a healthy, able-bodied young man with no restrictions keeping him from working 40 hours a week. In fact, the social worker even recommended that Tiffany seek employment. When I heard that detail, I nearly laughed myself off the couch. Tiffany, who considered walking from the couch to the fridge a cardio workout, was told to get a job. The universe could not have scripted a better comedy. The best part is that it did not stop there. Their application flagged a review of their food stamps, and it turned out Tiffany had been using them for non-essentials. By non-essentials, I mean bags of Flamin' Hot Cheetos, Frappuccinos, and an impressive collection of scented candles. The government does not exactly appreciate it when taxpayer money meant to feed children gets burned on pumpkin spice wax melts. So they lost their food stamps for a month, a whole month. The meltdown that followed was glorious. Tiffany stormed onto Facebook like a one-woman news anchor, delivering breaking updates from the front lines of injustice. She typed an essay-long rant in all caps with more spelling mistakes than a second grader's book report. According to her, this was all my fault. She claimed that if I had just helped like families should, they would not be in this mess. She painted herself as a sainted mother of three who was being unfairly persecuted, while I was the cold hearted sister who abandoned her family in their time of need. The comments section was a war zone. Half the people were egging her on with, "You deserve better, girl," and family should stick together. The other half were asking questions like, "Why are you expecting your sister to pay for your choices?" And did she really just say her baby daddy needs a PlayStation for stress? It was popcorn worthy entertainment. I could have ignored it, I could have taken the high road. But I had been the family mule for far too long, and watching Tiffany make me the villain of her soap opera was not something I was going to let slide. So I commented under her post and I wrote, if Emily had just been more careful, she would not have gotten pregnant 3 times by 3 different men. Silence fell on that thread like a bomb had dropped. People who had been cheering Tiffany on suddenly went quiet. Some even deleted their supportive comments. Others started laughing, reacting with those little laughing emojis like confetti. A few bold souls chimed in with things like, "She is not wrong," and "mic drop." Tiffany deleted the post an hour later, but by then the screenshots had already made their rounds. Jason called me furious, his voice so shrill he sounded like a kettle about to whistle, but I just turned my phone on silent and poured myself a glass of wine. For once in my life, I was not the mule. I was the one who got the last word, the one who refused to be manipulated into cleaning up their mess. And when I went to bed that night, I slept like a baby that night. This past weekend was my cousin's wedding, and oh boy, it was the kind of event where everyone in the family shows up dressed to impress, pretending for a few hours that their lives are perfectly put together. The bride looked stunning, the food was amazing, the band was playing all the right songs, and for a brief moment I thought, this might actually be a drama-free family event. Then I saw them. Jason and Tiffany arrived like royalty late to their own coronation, dragging the baby along like a prop in their never-ending production of Everyone Owes Us Something. Jason was wearing a wrinkled shirt that looked like it had been balled up on the floor of his car, and Tiffany was in a skin-tight dress that screamed clearance rack more than cocktail chic. They came empty-handed, of course. No gifts for the couple, not even a card. Just the confidence of people who believe their mere presence is a present. I did my best to avoid them, floating between my cousins, chatting with distant relatives, and enjoying the open bar. But Tiffany, being Tiffany, decided the reception was the perfect time to pick a fight. She cornered me at the bar, leaned in close enough for me to smell the mix of cheap perfume and wine on her breath, and hissed, "You think you're better than us, don't you?" I sipped my wine, looked her dead in the eye, and said calmly, "I don't think I'm better, Tiffany. I know I'm smarter. That's why I don't have to beg for money at weddings." She went red so fast I thought she might explode like a cartoon tomato. She stormed off in a fury, dragging Jason behind her while he muttered something about me being stuck up. The bartender, who had overheard everything, had to turn around to hide his laugh. The rest of the night was smoother. I danced, I ate cake, I caught up with relatives I had not seen in years, but the funniest part came later when my dad actually pulled me aside. His tone was quieter than I had ever heard, his face awkward like he was admitting to something deeply uncomfortable. He said, "Maybe you were right." That was it. That was his version of an apology, not an admission of years of favoritism, not an acknowledgement of all the times I bailed them out, but just a tiny crack in the golden boy armor. And honestly, I will take it. Since then, I have gone low contact. I still send my mom a card on Mother's Day, but that is about the extent of my effort. I do not show up for tuna casserole summons. I do not answer calls asking for just a little help this month. Jason and Tiffany, meanwhile, are busy posting passive-aggressive memes about fake family and snakes in the grass on Facebook. They get plenty of sympathy from the same crowd that used to comment on their baby registry, but the truth is, people see through them now. The registry incident, the food stamp drama, the wedding fiasco, it all added up. Their reputation is not my problem to fix, and I am not losing sleep over it. As for me, I am enjoying my quiet townhouse, my steady paycheck, and the blissful silence that comes from not being responsible for other people's bad decisions. I can buy groceries without worrying someone else will raid my fridge. I can sip wine without hearing Tiffany's voice in the background. I can live my life on my terms, free of the endless cycle of guilt and manipulation. After all, it is not my child and not my problem. Thank you for watching this story. If you enjoyed it, do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more.